The fairy tale that I want to tell you today is titled Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. She lived with her wicked stepmother and stepsisters in a run-down cottage on the outskirts of the kingdom. Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were cruel and treated her like a servant, making her do all the work while they lazed around and enjoyed themselves. Despite her difficult circumstances, Cinderella remained hopeful and always had a smile on her face. She was known throughout the kingdom for her kindness and beauty, but her stepmother and stepsisters were jealous of her and did everything they could to make her life miserable. One day, the king of the kingdom announced a grand ball to be held at the royal palace. All the young maidens in the kingdom were invited to attend, as the prince was seeking a bride. Cinderella's stepsisters were thrilled at the thought of attending the ball and immediately set to work preparing their gowns and accessories. Cinderella watched enviously as her stepsisters prepared for the ball, wishing she could go too, but her stepmother was adamant that she stay home and continue her chores. As Cinderella watched her stepsisters leave for the ball, tears welled up in her eyes. Little did she know that her life was about to change forever. As Cinderella sat alone in the cottage, a shimmering light appeared before her. It was her fairy godmother, who had been watching over her all this time. The fairy godmother smiled kindly at Cinderella and said, "My dear child, do not despair. You shall go to the ball too." With a flick of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed Cinderella's tattered rags into a beautiful gown made of the finest silk and satin. She then turned a pumpkin into a magnificent carriage, with mice into horses to pull it, and a rat into a regal coachman. Lastly, she placed a pair of glass slippers on Cinderella's feet. Cinderella was awestruck by the magical transformation and could hardly believe her eyes. She thanked her fairy godmother profusely and climbed into the carriage, setting off for the royal palace. As she arrived at the palace, the guests were stunned by her beauty and grace. The prince was captivated by Cinderella the moment he laid eyes on her and asked her to dance. They danced the night away, lost in each other's eyes. Cinderella felt as though she was living in a dream, but as the clock struck midnight, she remembered her fairy godmother's warning. In a panic, Cinderella fled from the palace, leaving behind one of her glass slippers on the steps. The prince tried to follow her, but could not catch up in time. As Cinderella ran through the streets, her beautiful gown turned back into rags, and the carriage into a pumpkin once more. The next day, the prince declared that he would marry the maiden whose foot fit the glass slipper. Every maiden in the kingdom tried on the slipper, but it would not fit anyone. As the prince was about to leave, Cinderella's stepsisters insisted that they try on the slipper too. But when it was Cinderella's turn, her stepsisters laughed at the idea of her trying on the slipper. To their amazement, the slipper fit perfectly, and Cinderella was revealed as the mysterious maiden from the ball. The prince was overjoyed and asked Cinderella to marry him, to which she happily agreed. Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were ashamed of how they had treated her and begged for forgiveness. Cinderella forgave them, and they all lived happily ever after in the palace, where Cinderella became queen and ruled with kindness and compassion. And so, Cinderella's tale of love and magic became known throughout the kingdom, inspiring generations to come. Her story taught everyone that true beauty comes from within, and to always believe in the power of kindness and hope. And so, children, remember to always be kind and never lose hope, for you never know when your own fairy godmother might appear to grant your wishes. The end.